Well, I guess, Travis, the question that we need to address is, where are we with name, image, likeness? It's something that is going on through the federal government. It's something that has been passed in various states. And where are we at specifically here in Texas and across the nation as well?
Well, this is what I've been working on all day because I think to understand what Amplify is and how it will affect student athletes, you have to know what the story is behind all of this name, image, and likeness legislation, and where that is not only on a state but also on a federal level, and an NCAA level as well. And so, um, what happened was in 2019, California became the first state to issue their own state legislation on name, image, and likeness, and that is that the college student athletes in that state could monetize their name, image, and likeness, which means you could sell autographs, you could do endorsements, you could take money for who you are, for your name, and everything associated with you away from the football field because you are a student athlete. Now, as is the case in the Texas legislation and California and all the other ones, you can't, they, universities can't use this to recruit players. They can't set up deals for these guys beforehand to entice them to come, and they can't be paid simply for playing on the field, for their play or what they do in the classroom. But they can, if Coca-Cola or the local car dealership down the street wants to give them some money to tweet out a picture that kind of endorses their ad or their car dealership or be on a commercial, that's kind of where we're going with this stuff. Perfect case in point, Johnny Manziel tweeted out an interview, or Barstool tweeted out an interview with Johnny Manziel today talking about the fact that he did ultimately end up making, at least in two instances that he mentioned, $33,000 off signing a bunch of autographs for some brokers and dealers. And it was a super shady, sneaky process where he went to a hotel and signed some stuff, and there was money in a safe, and he got the combination after he was done. And so what this legislation will do is legalize that so it doesn't have to be shady, and the NCAA doesn't crack down on these players, because I think the argument is, if you're a band, if you get a scholarship to come to A&M to be in the band, and you're a music major, you can then go teach flute lessons to somebody and make money off of that skills that you have. But in this instance with student athletes, they can't. So all that being said, in the end of last month, both the Texas Senate and the Texas House um, uh, approved and signed off of. I'm going to try to get the number right here. Senate
Senate Bill
Bill
1385, I think.
There it is, Senate Bill 1385. Of course, if you want to read all of this, my story will be in Friday's Eagle and on theeagle.com, so you can check all this stuff out there. But Senate Bill 1385, which cleared the path for student athletes to monetize their endorsements, their autographs, things like that. And there's lots of different little nuances and verbiage in there, like they can't endorse tobacco, firearms that they aren't legally allowed to buy, sexually oriented industries, things like that. There's a line they can't draw, and they can't be paid by the university to endorse the university or to endorse it, or get university property in exchange, little things like that. But one of the key points to it as regards to amplifying the news that came out today is the fact that as part of this program, legally, schools in Texas will have to provide life skills and financial skills workshops for the students at the beginning of their first and third years at the institution. Now, what Amplify does is it provides that year round, because there will be training, there will be different things that they can do to learn how to better their finances, to work out contracts, to negotiate deals. They have this influencer app and some other third-party companies that will come in and help arrange some of these things and provide information, education on how some of this stuff works. So not only can they not have to be Johnny Manziel and do these secret deals, but they'll have resources available to them that they're not going to get hoodwinked by some guy who wants some autographs in a hotel room. They'll actually be able to learn how to make themselves a business. One of the things that Josh Chambers has taught some of the players in the past, and that is literally how to start LLCs. That is their brand, so they can set up if they want to do a clothing line, if they want to trademark some things, if they, that they can start setting those things up on themselves and have the knowledge to be able to do that, and that'll be incorporated in some of this kind of training as well. So where that lies with the now with Texas Tech was another one that they have the Beyond Verified program, which is the same thing as Amplify, which then will put them in compliance with Senate Bill
1385.
There it is. You have it pulled up. Senate Bill 1385. So that being said, now everyone sits and waits because it needs there needs to be some national guidance on this, whether it comes from the federal government or whether it comes from the NCAA. Because as of June 1, that's when the first state bills start to roll into play. And if those come into play before national or federal guidance comes in, then it'll be a free for all. It'll be state by state who can do what, and it'll probably drastically affect recruiting and things like that. So the push is to get stuff done before July 1st. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. The important thing to look out for is the fact that the Alston versus the NCAA case is going to be heard and decided upon by the Supreme Court this week, which has to do with what is the definition of amateur status and professional status. And if the people are looking to that, I'm sure the federal government is in essence looking to that, and the NCAA, to see if that the judges in the ruling are going to give definitions to these two terms and what money can be made while still holding an amateur status and things like that. Once that comes down, you'll probably see a quick onslaught. And then there has been some federal bills filed, but you'll probably see that start to move forward because they have a little bit more ground to work with. And you might even see by the end of the month, the NCAA set up a framework for how this is going to work, i.e., will the players be able to get the money right away? Will they have to put it into a trust? What's the definition of a player to the university? Is it they're more an employee type of thing, or is it not at all because they're not really an employee? In fact, this Texas State bill made sure to emphasize the fact that the student athletes are not employees of the university, which has a whole slew gob of legal ramifications as well. So let's take a deep breath, because that was a lot of information to say that ultimately all of these things, we don't necessarily completely know all of how Amplify is going to work and all of how NIL legislation is going to work, because they're waiting on where the goalposts are going to be, how this is going to be run, and what's the frameworks of it. And then people can be flexible and kind of take that in and realize and deal with how that's going to look into the future. So it's still really complicated is the short answer.
Yeah. What we do know is that name, image, likeness is happening. It is coming. What we do know is that A&M has a plan in place for student athletes to benefit from name, image, likeness. And what we do know is that college athletics is changing, and it is changing very rapidly. And this is a major development in the world of amateurism and the NCAA and college sports in general.
I'm curious, Alex, what's your take on this? And I know, again, it's hard, like it is hard for the university administrators and politicians to be able to rule on this because we don't know where the goalposts are exactly. But where we sit now, what's your take on this NIL stuff, and how it moves forward? And do you think it's going to be good or bad for the games?
Man, that's such a it's a great question, and there's people on very very wide-ranging opinion. I'm of the opinion that this will be good. It gives athletes, especially the guys like Johnny Manziel or the Joe Burrows of the world, that people know their name. They had opportunities to sign autographs in shady hotel rooms to where that's legal, and where universities are making dollar upon dollar upon dollar on their name. Well, they can too, because at the end of the day, that was their ability that produced that revenue. And so it paves a way to where, I think in some essence, amateurism is still maintained because obviously you're not getting paid millions of dollars, but until you get to that point, you have an opportunity of, if you're successful on the field, you can you can benefit from that monetarily. Um, and it's gonna hopefully crack down on some of probably the shady stuff that goes on. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of my take. I am really curious how it's gonna be. Like you said, there's a lot of moving goalposts. How they've got to find a way to make it uniform across the country, because yeah, it could get really uneven very quickly if it's state by state, and certain states have different regulations, and different states provide better benefits and advantages for different student athletes. So yeah, I think the principle and the idea is good, but let's see the execution actually work.
I'll be the most interested in, and I know there's a lot of parts in this, to see how the money distribution happens. If it is something like, if Alex Miller gets to tweet a tweet that's sponsored by Coke and Coca-Cola, and you get to get the money for it, does that money go right into your bank account then? Or is there a system that has been proposed like that goes into a trust fund that is unlocked once you either graduate, leave the school, go pro, one of those kind of things kicks into place, and then it's all given to you? Because I think if you are a strong traditional idea of amateurism kind of proponent, then you'll want to see something like that, because that keeps that idea of you're not necessarily getting paid in the moment. But then you also have the counter side where you have athletes who can take that money and send it home and help with the family if money and bills are tight. And there's a lot of interesting ways to do about that. The other interesting thing, and we talked about with this with I talked about with this with Josh, is the idea that so much of this is centered around social media and how they can monetize themselves on social media. Because if you do look at a college kid who is on YouTube, on Instagram, they become an influencer because of their followers, and people pay them to post advertised content. Any normal student can do that, but the student athletes can't. So much of this is going to be social media driven. But the historical idea of social media and how it interacts with college student athletes is the idea of it's a distraction. You need to block out the noise. Coaches in the past, when it first was a thing, you hear of coaches telling their kids to kind of banning their students from being on it. And then when that kind of seemed a little bit less doable, feasible, you have some student athletes who say, well, I get off of it during the season. Well, some of this ideas that these programs are going to tell them about how to brand themselves are going to say, well, you can't do that. You need to take every possible opportunity to capitalize on your successes, and you're going to have to be on social media more. So what's the balance there? And I think, as Josh said, that's something that they're going to have to kind of figure out, because there is a give and take there, and it might be a part of the individual student athlete and how well they can handle each one. So that's a little bit of an interesting part. Overall, I think it is a good thing, because of you want to, if anybody who wants to argue amateurism towards college sports isn't just about, let's line up the best players from your school and my school and see whose school is better, like it was in the late 1800s and early 1900s. This is a multi-billion-dollar business. And if it really was about bragging rights and seeing whose school is best, the old Southwest Conference would still be around. A&M would still be playing all the schools in Texas and all the schools they really care about. But no, they're in the SEC because it gives them a better opportunity to raise the finances of both the athletic department and the university, to raise it in stature. It's a business. And so, because to say that the students have to hide behind this veil of amateurism, while all the universities making millions and millions, and conferences are making billions and billions of dollars, is stupid. So they should be able to do that. Now, how it's regulated and how it still keeps that college feel? I don't know. That's what that framework is going to have to be, and that's what everyone is really interested in, and kind of waited with bated breath to see what's going to happen there.
Well, like we said before, this is happening, and it's going to change the landscape of college athletics for good. So this is definitely something that we're going to have to pay attention to and follow, because it's coming, and it's going to affect many and all aspects of college athletics. All right, Travis, I think that's all the time we got today.
I like it. Quick
All right.
jaunt into the world of NLI. Because I mean, I would have let you talk about this more from all your experience, being an influencer on Instagram. But I just figured I'd leave that behind.
There you go.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today for another edition of the My Aggie Nation podcast. We'll be back next week. For Alex Miller and Travis Brown, have a great week.